Dear ministers and dear friends, I appreciate this opportunity to discuss the most pressing issues facing our countries, Europe, and the world. This roundtable is a great platform to address global challenges, and I thank The Economist for bringing together government officials, experts, businesses, and the media. We live in a world where the efforts of just one of these groups of people will never be enough. Government, civil society, expert community, entrepreneurs, reporters, and ordinary netizens expressing their views on social media all share the same online space, or rather, the same communications battlefield. It just depends on the perspective. We find ourselves in a reality of competing narratives, whether we like it or not, and we must win in this communications battle every day, because they are inseparable. These battles are inseparable from the battles taking place on the ground. There will never be a moment when the truth prevails once and forever. This is a daily struggle and work. In the end, the narratives might be competing, but our values remain universal: individual and collective freedom, human rights, respect for international law, and the UN Charter. None of these things are granted. They all must be won and protected daily. For us in the Ukrainian government, this represents the daily challenge of delivering fact-based information about Russian aggression against Ukraine to global audiences, explaining the Ukrainian cause to different people around the world. And we are doing all of this against the backdrop of Russia's enormous efforts to promote its state propaganda, whitewash its war crimes, and shift the blame for the largest war in Europe since the Second World War. Under such circumstances, the value of factual and accurate reporting is difficult to overestimate. And I thank all journalists who are doing exactly this. Similarly, there is great value in effective government communications and fundamental expert research that goes beyond bias and cliches. In challenging times like these, all of us need to do more than we thought we could. We learned this from living in total war for over 2 years. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Ukraine has been forced to change many approaches and invent know-how, from the battlefield to communications and diplomacy. We had to reinvent many traditional methods because peacetime tools do not always work in wartime. And this is how we forged Ukrainian wartime diplomacy. Its only goal is survival and victory in the war, which means the need for a strong international coalition in support of Ukraine, weapons and ammunition by our warriors, and sanctions and isolation for the aggressor. Despite our modest resources, which are incomparable to those of Russia, we have been able to achieve many significant outcomes, including extensive use of modern technologies in diplomacy, including artificial intelligence. President Zelensky's leadership of our wartime diplomacy galvanized audiences all over the world, mobilized military aid, and brought nations from all continents and regions of the world together around the UN Charter's tenets. This was especially evident at the recent Peace Summit in Switzerland in June, attended by 100 countries and international organizations from all parts of the world. And we will continue this important work. Wartime diplomacy has a number of rules, such as being stubborn. A wartime diplomat must never give up, however hard the task may be. He or she must also not be afraid to polarize with friends. Necessary decisions sometimes require that, and in the end, friends will understand. Wartime diplomats should also never be opting for Plan B, but spare no efforts to realize Plan A. They must be disrupting protocol and political processes to speed up decision-making. They must be working on all levels rather than limiting cooperation to separate people or institutions. They must keep the messaging sharp and clear and abandon diplomatic newspeak. They must remember that content is king, and wartime diplomats must also be flexible while being firm. seeking a la carte decisions if they advance their goals better than categorical demands, being ready to choose alternative options for attaining goals. Let me summarize it in two words. Whatever works. This is the approach of a wartime diplomat. I'm certain that our wartime diplomacy experience is of great value for many people and institutions around the world, and sometimes I imagine that similar approaches were taken when combating climate change or other global challenges. Probably many more results could be achieved in a shorter time. But if I am to summarize wartime diplomacy rules and to emphasize the most important one, it's about Plan A. No exit strategy, no Plan B, nothing if you want to implement Plan A. Plan B kills Plan A. This is why we never stick to compromises which go beyond our red lines, but present it to us as a more feasible Plan B. Make no mistake, once you focus on Plan B, forget about Plan A. So all wartime diplomats should be focused on their initial ambitious and principled plans. Dear friends, in my interviews, I'm often asked whether Ukraine is worried about various developments taking place around the world, in Europe and beyond. Is Ukraine worried about the US elections? Is Ukraine worried about European elections? Is Ukraine worried about something else? And so forth and so on. To be honest, these questions are a bit irrelevant, and this attitude also comes from the wartime diplomacy experience. We are not worried because we are working. We are not worried because we know that we will have to find a way out and a solution out of any puzzle, any difficult situation. We are a nation at war fighting for its survival and victory. We will work with whatever circumstances are there. We will respect any choices made by the people in partner countries. And we will keep working on achieving our goals. We have no such joy as to observe the present and predict the future. We are fighting for our present, and we are creating our future. This is a lesson that the war taught us. Of course, we all know that media loves drama. No drama, no clicks, no viewers, no advertisers. But there are at least 3 reasons for us not to worry when it comes to any elections abroad and not take them as dramas. First, support for Ukraine among democratic partner states is founded in solidarity and support among the people. This is how democracies function, and we will continue to work on sustaining popular support for Ukraine's cause. Second, we must look at the actions, not words, of the candidates. It is one thing to campaign and rally your voters, and it is another thing to actually be in government and assume responsibility for decisions. We have seen this difference many times before. Third, there is simply no alternative to supporting Ukraine's victory and ensuring that Russian aggression fails. Otherwise, the national security of our partners will be jeopardized. This is relevant both for Europe and the United States and beyond. If we allow Russia to succeed in Ukraine, this will be a world of chaos and interstate conflicts, possibly leading to a catastrophic global conflict. If successful in Ukraine, Russia will undoubtedly proceed with aggression against other countries in Europe. At the same time, Russia's allies, North Korea and Iran, will feel emboldened to challenge stability in other parts of the world. We already see this group of 3 states working together to plunge the world into chaos and replace international law with the law of the jungle, which they frame as the new world of equality, of true, genuine equality. This is again the difference between the narrative and the reality. They exchange resources, weapons, and ideas with the simple goal of defeating the West, or at least weakening and destabilizing it. The earlier free nations and their leaders realize this, the sooner effective collective action will be taken to reduce these threats and force Moscow, Pyongyang, and Tehran to recalculate their plans. Dear colleagues, in these 2.5 years, nothing has harmed our shared cause more than the fear of escalation. We heard this every time we requested a new type of weapon that Ukraine desperately needed to protect its people and critical infrastructure. We heard this every time a major decision needed to be taken, from providing Ukraine with EU candidate status to making other big political moves. We always were offered Plan Bs instead of Plan A. But in the end, we got Plan A implemented. In the end, every decision was made. Sometimes it took time, sometimes it took more effort, but every decision was made. And none of them led to any escalation from the Russian side, because Russia escalates on its own. And today, its pockets of escalation are empty. And my request today is to believe in Ukraine's ability to prevail and finally abandon the fear of escalation as key factor in the decision-making. Putin must fear us. He must be struggling to read our minds. He must be cautious and look for ways out and path to ending his aggression, not the other way around. When we talk about decisions that can help us improve the situation on the battlefield, there are 3 of them. First, providing more Patriot and other air defense systems and missiles to Ukraine in order to throw Russia out of Ukrainian skies. Second, providing Ukraine with the ability to destroy Russian tools of air terror, its bombers, before they approach Ukrainian borders, namely at the airfields in Russia and in its skies. And third, sufficient and steady supplies of artillery ammunition to give Ukrainian land forces an upper hand. Friends, in the fight for faith and homeland, with these words in 1821, the liberation struggle of the Greek people began. Today, for more than 2 years, Ukrainians have been sharing this slogan. And I take this opportunity to thank the Greek government and my dear colleague and people of Greece for their support since the first day of Russia's full-scale invasion. In particular, we are grateful to Prime Minister Mitsotakis for his recent attendance at the Global Peace Summit, for his support of Ukraine at the EU level. I know that we in Ukraine and all of you who value life in Europe and beyond, we all defend the same values: freedom, democracy, human rights, the rule of law, decent life for all. And through collective and decisive action, we will prevail. But we must be brave, we must do more, every one of us, every single day. Thank you for what you've done, thank you for what you will be doing, and thank you for your attention.